staring at Autumn in the little box to make sure she's got everybody open. Welcome everybody to the last official regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees this year. We have tonight with us Gina Steiner, Eric Fong, Marwan Cameron, and myself. Sue Whitford is not joining us this evening because she's traveling. So we do have a quorum. And let's see. Gina, do you want to read the mission statement, please?
Sure. We're inspiring our community to dream more, learn more, do more, and be more.
Thank you. Jason, would you like to do further welcomes and introductions?
Absolutely. Just want to welcome in everyone and introduce my fantastic leadership team. Deputy Director Dan Baer, Chief Financial and Operating Officer. Lucretia Robertson, Director of Human Resources and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Mike Rose, our Director of Facilities, Maintenance, and IT. Wendy Kyle, who's Executive Director of the Kitsap Regional Library Foundation, and last but not least, Tammy Jeffries, Executive Assistant. Welcome all. And excused tonight is Jeannie Allen and Shannon Peterson.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have you do that because their titles are really long.
They are long, correct.
So thanks for doing that every time.
Sure.
Let me just ask of my colleagues, any additions or changes to the agenda requested?
No.
Right. We also, just bear with us because we're going to speed through the front end of this because we also don't have any public comment. Moving down to the consent agenda, all matters listed within the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion of the Board of Trustees with no separate discussion, unless there is separate discussion desired on one of the items, in which case items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request. Within the consent agenda this evening, we have minutes from our last regular meeting held November 22nd. We also have minutes of the board's study session that was held on December 7th. We have the routine payment of November 2022 bills, including payroll and benefits, and the blanket voucher for all of the bills. We also have surplus library materials withdrawn from the collection for November, which includes 3,674 items. That being pretty standard consent agenda, is there any of those items somebody would like to pull off and discuss, or can I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Eric. Is there a
second?
Thanks, Marwan. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. That leads us quickly. I hope you're prepared, Mike, because we just moved straight. We moved quickly to your presentation.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. Glad to see you all here on Zoom. Sorry that we're not in person this evening. Just as a side note, I'm sure Jason will mention this, but I am looking forward to seeing everybody in person at the Norm Dix Government Center starting next month. So that will be a fun new experience for us. Last month, Jason had asked me to do a little short presentation talking to you about IT's communication initiative that we're calling Quick Bites. When I took over several months ago, the IT team, there were a lot of things that we felt we needed to sort of catch up on. And those things involved things like improving our network security and working to have our staff help us, help them, if you will, secure our network with some of the targeted phishing attacks that we've been experiencing. And I don't want to sound like we're alone in that. That's sort of a routine thing that happens to everybody, but we were experiencing some targeted attacks, and we just felt like we needed a communication method to talk to all of our KRL staff in a way that was sort of fun, a little bit self-deprecating, if you will, but talking about important items that are IT and network security related. And so we kind of put our heads together and we came up with this concept that we're calling Quick Bites. And they're short video segments on important subject matters that are critical for the protection of our IT infrastructure. And we try and do 1 or 2 a month, basically. And we've talked about topics such as I mentioned, phishing and getting staff to protect themselves and not click on the wrong things in email. We did one talking about some new email security banners. Whenever staff sees a change to their computer usage or anything like that, we want to do a quick bite that communicates that out before they see a change. So if something looks different, we want to tell them about it before it looks different so they can anticipate it. This month's themed episode is about the use of password managers. We here at KRL use a system called 1Password that secures everyone's password. We use it. We have the ability to use it individually and for our personal passwords and for all of our KRL related passwords. And then it also gives us the ability to share amongst teams passwords. So each branch has what's called a vault where the staff at that branch can access that password without having to memorize it or put it on a sticky note on their screens or anything like that. They have access to 1Password. And as you'll see in the video, it helps you by automatically filling in a username and password at an appropriate identified URL or website so that you don't have to remember those things. And it also helps identify whether it is the proper URL or if it's potentially phished and inappropriate URL, it won't fill it in. So with no further ado, I will share my screen here and share you with the episode 4 of Quick Bites. Let's see if I can do this. And hopefully you've got audio. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Well, we can see the agenda.
You see a little gnome there?
Yeah.
Christmas ornament? Okay.
Mike, if we're supposed to be getting audio, we don't have it.
No audio?
No.
No, but the visuals are fun.
Sorry. Why am I not sharing audio?
Mike, when you if you stop share and then restart it, when you share again, there's a little tiny box in the bottom left-hand corner that says share audio of your screen share when the screen share window pops up.
We'll try one more time. Sorry. It's not like I'm the IT director or anything. That's going right to that screen and it's not giving me audio. Oh, there we go. Share sound. Okay, we got it. Thank you, Wendy. Try one more time.
Now we don't have the video though.
Mike, we're only seeing your background and your, all right, you got to, third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm. My goodness. Did you have audio that time?
This makes me feel better, Mike. This makes me feel better that it can happen to anybody.
Makes us all feel better.
Yeah.
Zoom challenge now. We haven't been on Zoom for so long. All right. Last time. This is going to work this time. I'll share the right screen.
Here we go.
And I failed to mention early on that we all, the IT team sort of elected Gianni Basile as our designated host for Quick Bites. So as you'll see in the opener here that, Gianni kind of puts these together for us and then we all review it before they go out to all the staff. So here we go.
Hey man, I'm from Amazon. Got a package for you.
Oh boy, let's take a look.
Whoa, hold on there. I'm gonna need to see your password first before you can get your delivery.
Did you check with my password manager?
Yeah, man, he said he didn't know me, but I mean, look, I'm Amazon.
Yeah, I can clearly see that. Hey, PM.
Yeah, what's up?
Did you not give this guy my password?
Nah, man, I don't know this guy. His URL's all messed up.
Dude, but he clearly works for Amazon.
Sir, I'm doing what I'm paid to do, which is keeping your passwords safe.
Okay, man. I'll tell you what. You give me my password, and I'll give it to him.
That'll work. Sir, I think this is a bad idea.
Dude, it doesn't matter what you think. You work for me.
That's true. That's true. Okay, you know what? Fine. Have your passwords. Just don't come crying to me when you get hacked.
Finally. Okay, here's my password.
Ooh, yeah, sorry. I don't think this is the right one.
Wait, what?
Yeah, sorry. Do you have any others you could try?
How about this one?
Nope.
This one?
Nada.
This one?
Zip.
Okay, you know what? Just take all my passwords.
Don't mind if I do. This is gonna take me a second to flip through and find the right one. Do you mind if I go take a peek?
Yeah, take all the time you need, my dude.
Thanks, my guy. Happy holidays.
Hey, PM, I'm starting to think this guy doesn't work for Amazon.
Yup.
And I gave him all my passwords?
Yup.
I don't even know why I pay you.
Hey KRL fam, it's Gianni from IT. Today I'm going to be walking you through how to use 1Password, which is a password manager we have given everybody in the organization access to. Now, not everybody may have an individual account, but if you are a public services or front-end worker, chances are you have access to the shared account. Now, with that little bit out of the way, I'm going to walk you through why a password manager is important, and more importantly, how you can utilize it to keep yourself safe. So what I have in front of us right now is a sign-in page for Amazon. Now, on first inspection, this does generally look like it would be a legitimate sign-in page. However, when we come up and we check the URL, we can see that this isn't Amazon. So because we're using a password manager, when I go to sign in here and click, it says that there are no items to show. Now, this right here is the crux of why a password manager is really, really useful. A password manager is not going to fill out the passwords for any kind of fake or false or spoofed website sign-in. So if I come over to Amazon.com, the legitimate one, when we check the URL, and we click it, we can see that there are actually sign-ins available. And the reason for this is that 1Password actually ties the sign-in to the URL. So what this essentially just means for us is that there is no way, if we're using a password manager, to accidentally enter in our credentials and have them compromised if we are allowing the password manager to do the majority of the filling for us. And that right there is the major crux and really the biggest part of a password manager that's going to go a long way in protecting you. So how do we actually use 1Password? Well, you should already have 1Password installed as an extension on your Chrome or your Edge browser. From there, you'll simply click on it and then have to sign in with your shared account password or your personal password, depending upon who you are in the organization, whether or not you have a personal account. But when we come into here and we want to say create a new login, when we open this up, we can see that we can name it whatever we want, give it a username and password, but this web address right there, that denotes the URL that is going to be applicable, so it won't be filling things out in spots where it shouldn't be. Lastly, I want to bring up one more point, which is also a really, really good habit to get into when doing password management. If we are relying on a password manager, we don't really have to remember our passwords. And, that's one of the major reasons that we actually use them. Now, the benefit of not necessarily having to remember your password is it also gives us the option of not actually knowing our password. So what that means is if we don't actually know our password and we're letting our password management system take care of it for us, when we do end up on a bad website, we literally cannot compromise ourselves. And that right there is a huge bonus in regards to preventing yourself from becoming hacked. So when we come into here and we're creating a brand new field, we can actually have it completely generate a randomized string of characters that there's no way in our, in our human existence that we can be able to remember all of these. And when we have these completely randomly generated, once again, we're not going to be able to compromise ourselves because the password manager is going to be doing this for us. And that's pretty much it, folks. I hope everybody has a happy holiday season. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you in the next video.
Okay, so that is our little IT communications method that we've been using. And those go out, like I said, occasionally, once or twice a month. They go out to all the staff through email. And then they're also made available through our SharePoint shared site so people can access them at a later time. And it just goes along with our Ask Godi, which is our ticketing system. We have a knowledge database there that are answers to all kinds of possible questions. And this is just another way of trying to communicate security-based information out to our staff. So it's kind of a fun little thing that we're trying to draw people in, make them interested in watching it, but also convey some important information to them at the same time. So that's Quick Bites.
Very clever. Mike, so do you find, just because it's fun, that you have a high access or open rate to those things because you've made it more fun?
We've tried to garner interest, and I know the guys can kind of watch to see how much activity we get on those videos. So I think you're never going to catch everybody with every method of communication, but if we can reach out through email, we're also working with Lucretia and when we onboard a training manager, I've talked with Jason about having sort of a network or IT annual training requirement for staff, just as a reminder for people just to try and keep it on the forefront of their minds whenever they're logging into something or reading their email, that they're not. We all have to kind of protect ourselves and pay attention to what we're clicking on, right? And who we're getting emails from and things like that. So protecting our technology is kind of all of our responsibility, not just IT. And so that's the crux of the message we're trying to get out, is everybody has to be involved.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a comment. Really appreciated the video, Mike. I thought it was really well done. I've worked at many companies in tech, consulted for non-tech companies. This happens with every email address I've had. It happens. I consult in the federal industry. It happens to federal agents all the time, regular employees who are not technical. So I thought this was really good training, and always just a reminder to not get caught up in the moments when you think you need to log on to Amazon, or when you think you need to pay a bill. It's, passwords are in some ways the place where we maintain our safety, but also one of the most vulnerable places. Easy can be an easy entrance. So
That's right.
Appreciated the video and appreciated the very engaging approach. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, it's Marwan. First off, I thought it was hilarious. I love the script on that. So made me laugh quite a bit on that. But I had a question for you. With using the random generator, should you want to log in to you get a new device and you want to add that in, how easy is it to do that?
With using a password manager like 1Password that we use, it's really very simple, because you load, for example, if I'm on my work laptop like I am now, if I were to bring up a website and try to log in, One Password is automatically linked to my browser, and so it would be there and offer up that username and password for me. I also have One Password on my mobile device. I have the app on my mobile device. So if I am working remotely, then I can do the same thing. I can open up One Password. I can click the link directly from the One Password app to open up a website or another app, and it will autofill in the appropriate information. So it's really very easy to go from device to device because it's a cloud-hosted security system. So it will transfer from device to device without you having to worry about copying down your passwords or copying them over. You just need to log in on the new device into your password manager, and all that data is there.
So just for clarification, if I log into my Gmail on the new device, because it's part of the Chrome browser, it will automatically set up the system?
Let's see if you have One Password loaded as an add-in on your device, then yes, it will automatically carry over.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much.
Of course.
Now on to board member reports. I'm going to start because I have a couple of things, starting with activity earlier today. I sat in today along with Dan and Jason on the exit conference with the Office of the Washington State Auditor. We talked a month or so ago about having been involved in the entrance conference for that. It's an independent audit that really verifies transparency and really the accountability of the library to being good government and to being integritous in their processes and policies and adhering to those. The audit really included two components. It included both a financial statement audit and it included an accountability audit. It covered a 2-year period, which started in January of 2020 and went through 12/31/2021, so a two-year period. I have to say we were in the conversation and out pretty quickly by comparison, because kudos to the staff and the leadership at the library in particularly. We got a completely clean audit in both accounts with no findings. So high praise to the work that's being done. And more important, I think what's important about these audits is they really also give assurance to the board, and more important, even the public, that in fact, what's being looked at is not only is the library compliant with state law and other regulation, but also that we're compliant with our own policies and procedures that line up to that. And sometimes that can be the hardest part in many respects, is to adhere to our own policies and procedures. But in all respects, it was a completely clean audit, no material misstatements or any findings were to be put on the table, which is why we were done in about 20 minutes. So I want to say that I have to say the experience, and we commented on this, is that it really did. I mean, nobody wants to be part of an audit. We've all been a part of an audit. I'm certain Dan did not want to be the lead contact on an audit, but it appeared with this particular experience that it was very partnership in spirit, right? That they really came forward with I was struck with a complete commitment and integrity to good government and helping organizations live up to that. And it was congenial and it really in the spirit of partnership. And they were really quite complimentary then of the interface with Dan as well as the staff, because when you go through these, you never have everything that you think they're going to want. They always want something that you have to, go chase down. And so they commented on that specifically because the team in their interface was also responsive and efficient, that also meant that the cost of the audit stayed within the budgeted framework as well. So kudos to you. And I don't know if anybody has any questions. The one thing that I did, and I don't know why we went to a 2-year cycle. And it could be that, part of the size, and I don't know if it was partly COVID that sort of got us there, but we're going back to a 1-year annual audit cycle. So Dan, maybe you can just speak to why were we on a 2-year cycle?
Well, actually, we've been on a 2-year cycle up until our revenue exceeded the $10 million mark.
Okay.
And then they were trying to transition us to a single year, every year audit. However, the pandemic hit. And then there was so much federal money grants that were distributed in the second year of the pandemic, they were overwhelmed with grant audits. And so that's why they skipped us last year doing it and moved it to 2 years for this year. And we'll be on hopefully our first single year audit next year.
Yeah, good. Any questions for Dan? Jason?
No questions, just really echoing Dan's thoroughness in his job. He's very integrous, thorough, really conscientious about Carol's money and very fiscally sound. I think that's what you want from your chief financial officers. You want them to be integrous. And I'm really impressed by the work that Dan does for Carol. And that showed in the audit report today. So kudos to Dan for the work he does. And he's the best in the business. So thank you, Dan.
So majority of the items were really related to high level risk, where we would have the greatest risk associated with finances, but it was also about public access and meetings, which is really also a tribute to Tammy and Autumn in terms of supporting that endeavor as well. So that was also part of the accountability audit. So good. The second thing, less complicated, is we did want to kind of give a bit of a report out. You can certainly read the minutes that are in the consent agenda about the study session, but this board in particular, because we're all relatively new. I'm the most senior member of the board at this point, and I joined in 2020. And we've had new board members, and we'll have another new board member joining us in January. It's just a really good time with a relatively new board and a brand new director and the commitment of the leadership team to really stop and think about our own education and what kind of culture we want to create together in support of our role with the library on behalf of the public, but also in interfacing with the leadership team in support of the work we do. So we spent some time talking about, what qualities are, and actually saw a presentation that Jason had secured for us. What were the elements of culture and how does it get supported and advanced through process and procedure, and what did we want for ourselves? So we spent some time talking about that. We also did take a moment to review the bylaws for the Board of Trustees. We hadn't looked at them in the entire time I had been on. So we did have some discussion about that. Our commitment then is to come back to this meeting in January with some actual proposed revisions, red line revisions that we'll share and discuss in more detail in terms of what it is that we might want to take up in some updated bylaws. And we talked about the change in meeting schedule, which we're going to vote on later today, which is really about a change in venue for our meetings in 2023. So those were my items. I don't know. I'll open it up to my colleagues in terms of if they want to comment further on the study session and or what else they might have done in the interim period.
I will pass this month just to save my voice for later.
I'll just be brief. Stephanie, I asked Jason earlier, and he's going to talk to Tammy about updating the Board of Trustees roster with term dates because we have had so much transition in such a short amount of time. And I just appreciate the opportunity for our board education sessions. And it's good to have a little extra time to do a little deeper dive in the things that we're responsible for. And I don't have. Oh, sorry, one more last thing. I'm sorry I missed the November board meeting. I was out with COVID and felt pretty sick, but in October I met with the Kitsap Regional Library staff at the in the Kingston or the Little Boston branch, which included Kingston, and for their staff training day, my niece and I went over and taught them how to make cedar bark roses, which is a contemporary art form using a traditional Native American resource. So that was more fun, but really good way to interact with all the staff from Kingston and Little Boston. Thanks.
Yeah, just a comment regarding our gathering, our board gathering. I thought it was really good to kind of sync up again and get a refresher and kind of take some time to be mindful and focus on the values and the passions that we brought to our position in the first place. We are, we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. So I thought, kind of taking the time to remind ourselves of that and appreciate each other's backgrounds and appreciate each other's differences is what makes this a whole board. So I thought it was a really nice opportunity for all of us to get together.
Good. We also talked about onboarding because that's no easy lift when you're brand new. How could we, because you learn organically along the way and then you forget what you learned in the first place, so you're no good really in terms of how to onboard others. So given that we have Marwan's relatively newer, and then Eric Cisney will be joining us in January, they're perfect to help communicate, well, what was easy, what was hard, what could we do a better job of, how can we expedite to support better onboarding. So that's another thing that we're looking at in terms of getting trustees up and running quickly. So good. With that, we had a strategic and long-range planning committee meeting that preceded this board meeting. Gina or Eric, would you like to share?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and cover it, Stephanie. Eric and I attended on behalf of the board, met with Jason, Dan, and Lucretia, and we basically did a look back for the 2020 and our goals. We did a year-end review. We focused on 3 major areas. Probably one of the big accomplishments was reaching a collective bargaining agreement and strengthening our relationship with the union, and continuing that for the future, and remaining open to educating and informing one another. And then we talked about the facilities. The Silverdale opening was, of course, a major accomplishment, and how that's up and running and operating and being embraced by the public. And then Lucretia's work and being the lead on implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and how we're gonna, she's working on putting it into the strategic plan and seeking input from the patrons and being very intentional about identifying collections and seeking diversity on the board. And part of the operating goals has been updating the policy and implementing tools like Power DMS and hiring a strategist for the strategic plan implementation and ongoing work. And then looking at 2023, focusing on training staff of the library system and using the tools to optimize and streamline work, and the ongoing capital expenses of Sylvan Way, and how we're going to have to do some really focused analysis and decision making on that facility as we move forward. So I don't know if I missed anything, but those are my highlights.
That's great. That was a lot in an hour.
It was good. It's good to always do a look back and see where we've been and some of the things we've accomplished. So it's good to help maintain energy and feel rejuvenated.
Yeah, awesome. Dan, financial report.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good evening, everyone. A couple of things I wanted to say. It's a good report. It's a boring report. There really isn't much to add to it, but I do want to say that expenditures are looking good within target. Revenues are looking really good as well within target. Our cash position is good. So all those indicators look really great to me. I also wanted to point out, I don't think I've had this happen in a while, but I didn't have any expenditures for capital projects in November, which is, and I will have a few for McKinstry in December that'll show up on the December one, but it was just unusual to me. It's like, wow, I got a refund check for one of the projects, but no expenditures
That's
for that.
good.
So, and it, this is the time of year where we're pretty much winding down for all of those. Anyway, so be glad to take any questions if anybody has any for me.
I had questions more out of curiosity, Dan, because you do such a great job of annotating. Looking at the expenses, particularly that related to the interlibrary loan courier service, is that reflecting increased fuel prices?
Yes. Yeah. It's still a good service. It's still a good bargain for us.
Yeah, well,
So.
you can't not do it. It's just really evidence of.
Well, the option before, we were spending a lot more on postage before we had the Orbis courier service for the ILL. So it still is, it's still penciling out as a much better alternative than spending all that money on postage.
Yeah, well, they got to move one way or the other, right?
They do, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments for Dan? Great.
Thank you.
Jason, Library Director's Report.
All right, good evening, everyone. And yeah, this report is more of a reflection on what we accomplished in 2022. And so it was a busy year. I can't believe we're almost at Christmas holidays. Time has flown. And so I just really want to take a look back at what we've accomplished the past year. And really my mission coming in starting February 1 was to create an open, transparent communication process with staff, including our union partners, to get an understanding of our community so we can better suit their needs and really develop our leadership team to maximize their talents. I knew it was a talented group coming in, but really trying to understand what their assets were in terms of serving the organization. I think we've accomplished that. And so, some of the high level overview accomplishments, of course, we resumed in-person programming and including community engagement. We negotiated a new collective bargaining agreement, opened a new Silverdale library, refreshed our Manchester location. We extended hours to meet our patron obligations and then also we've launched the North Kitsap student accounts, which was great. And piloted a book locker in Poulsbo. We negotiated a contract with Bibliocommons to transition to a new website, which will be more accessible and exciting for not only our patrons, but our staff. We've negotiated with the city of Port Orchard to build a new library in the Port Orchard Community Events Center. And we've tentatively agreed on how that project will be financed by both the city and the library district. And once we have our attorneys finalize things, we'll bring them back to this board. We also acquired a new policy tool, DMS, for policy reviews, policy management, staff training. We unveiled our partnership agreement with Graduate Strong for House Bill 1835 for financial aid completion. We transitioned board meetings from virtual to hybrid to in-person. And now in 2023, negotiated a deal to move those meetings permanently to the Norm Dix Government Center, which is great. We completed a thorough capital project involving the roof and electrical grid on the Sylvan Way building, which houses admin, our library services for Sylvan Way, and also our service center. And so we completed that project. And then, I think we had a really good article with the Kitsap Sun on the library's direction and my direction with this particular group. So, we're the next, process really for us is to engage in a strategic plan, which we're looking at a 5-year view of that strategic plan and critically looking at library operations, library services, and how we can better serve the community. And so that's one of our main focus moving into 2023 is to get that accomplished. Continuing to meet with community partners, although not as rigorously as before. I feel like I've gotten a really good handle on what our community needs are. So now, the next steps with strategy is to really have some community thought sessions with some of those partners in our community to really talk about what the needs are, including getting the results from the community needs assessment. So that'll be moving in 2023. Human resources wise, we continue to be really busy with staff, movement. There's always, new hires coming aboard, and there's been resignations, retirement. So HR continues to be really, really, really busy. But really out of this report, I really want to highlight the work of Lucretia Robertson. And as you know, she transitioned from DEI. Yes, I'm going to embarrass you, Lucretia. And I think she deserves to be called out because, this team really has, both Mike and Lucretia, putting them in new positions to oversee multiple facets of operations. They both, I know have exceeded my expectations. And so with Lucretia, the hunch was that she could take over HR temporarily. And what that's turned into is she's done an exemplary job in leading HR and really being a thought partner with Dan and communicating with the union through LMCC meetings and our staff rep, and really just taking a real human-centered approach to talking and negotiating and being a good thought partner in this whole process. In addition to her role in also advocating for equity in everything we do here and weaving that DEI plan into all facets of operations and really leading from leadership on what that process will look like. And so, I really want to call out her work because she's done an unprecedented job, I think, in moving rather seamlessly, it seems like. But I know there's a lot of work that goes behind that. So I just really want to call her out because I've been thoroughly impressed with her work. And it's really given me great joy to watch her operate in this particular role and do it rather seamlessly. So, she has a busy job and she has a dual role, but she's pulled it off rather admirably. So, she's going to be very prominent in the strategic plan along with a lot of leadership, but, just really lifting up Lucretia and what she's done. So thank you. The other highlights really for the month is, continue to be impressed with our wellness teams and safety teams and the messaging that they put out to staff regarding really timely topics. November's was really timely moving into December because it covered cold weather preparedness, which we've had to jump into a lot of recently, including today, in closing down operations just because travel was so treacherous. So really want to lift up our wellness teams. And then in public services, the only other thing to mention is we're going to be celebrating, we celebrated Donna Nelson's retirement. And there'll be more about this in the December report as she has retired as of December 1st. But we've transitioned into hiring a new manager, which is Anna Kupro-Comas, who's the next branch manager of Silverdale effective January 1st. So that's a big transition in public services. And, there's a lot of work that's been done around getting her in-house and assessing candidates. And then the only other thing about Silverdale is the current installation of the donor wall, which has been a long process that's been led by Wendy Kyle. And finally, it looks like we're in a process of getting ready to have that installation completed next week. So really happy about that. And then, continuing the work on unveiling our website and getting that process done. So there are a lot of different departments are in on that process. Really looking forward to this being completed by the end of Q2 and really excited about what this will look like. It really brings us to the 21st century in terms of, our integrated library system where it should be. So really happy about that process moving into 2023. And other than that, I want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas if you celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa and Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions for Jason? I think I just want to make a comment, and I think it's happened over time, so just want to point it out. But we're looking at 3 of the staff here this evening who've joined us this evening who actually have all picked up additional roles. I mean, when I joined the library, we were more likely to have staff that had core roles, but Lucretia has spread her wings from including more departments than she started out with. Same with Dan and same with Mike. So it's also a comment on stewardship, I think, Jason, in terms of recognizing that great leaders can lead a lot of different functions organizationally if you give them the chance and the opportunity. And I think we've certainly seen that in the last year with this particular team. Also have watched growth within the team in terms of clearly, everybody's sort of gelling, always hard when you get a new leader, but everybody's sort of settling in and gelling into a new place. You can see it from one another when one or the other is giving a report or making comments, and you see these affirmative nods coming from their colleagues. So just want to acknowledge, really, I think what we're seeing is incredible talent, but also great stewardship on the part of the library.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's just a team that is still coalescing, and I've asked them all to do more, and they've risen to the occasion. It's been, I mean, really, I mean, and I think, from our staff in general and our public doesn't see what all happens behind the
Right.
scenes, especially on a day like today where we unfortunately have to close down the library district because of weather. But of course, while most of the staff are off for the day, leadership team is still working, sending emails, working behind the scenes. And these are the things that go unnoticed. But, I notice, of course, we have folks who are sending emails at 11, o'clock at night, and, organizing constantly on their, what really is their personal time. But as as a leadership, they're always expected to be working and thinking on behalf of the organization and trying to make it better. And this team has done that. So I'm really happy with where we are right now.
Yeah, same with, we'll come into the end of the week when lots of people will be trying to take vacation, and that's a good time to install donor walls, which requires also it requires other people to come into work and off time. So really,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that. I think it's a tremendous, it's just a strong statement, not only of the stewardship, but also the talent in the team and the capability of people, honestly. So good job.
Thank you.
We have no correspondence this evening. We also have no old business. So that brings us to new business in the agenda, starting with the annual election of officers, which would take effect in January. I think it was last month, we actually identified a subcommittee that included Marwan and Sue. And then Sue ditched you, Marwan. So I'm going to look to you if you would like to present your recommendation for the slate of officers for next year.
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to put forth and present a motion to have myself and Gina to be a part of the strategic planning committee.
Okay. So I think technically, Tammy and I were discussing this last time, although this might be one of those things that we'll look to also do maybe in the bylaws, is our committee assignments are separated from our officer. The timing makes no sense to me. So we want to definitely affirm that, but can't take actual action on those two things. I think tonight taking action only on the officers, and then we'll pick up the committee assignments, and then that will be an item we'll be looking at if it's actually outlined that way in our bylaws, because it makes no sense to me to have this stuff separated. So how about, the slate of officers, just in terms of president and vice president, Marwan?
President, yourself, Stephanie George, Vice President Eric Fong, Finance Committee. Can I talk about those also?
Yeah, you can go ahead. We're
Okay.
thinking about in terms of committee assignments for sure.
So for Finance Committee would be Stephanie George and Eric Fong. I already mentioned the Strategic Planning Committee, Gina Steiner, myself. And then for the Policy Review Committee would be Eric Sisney.
Yeah, he's gonna, and that was another thing that we chatted about in our study session, is that Eric serves as the liaison for that work and sort of the lead for certainly the board, but on all three of these areas, whether it's policy, strategic planning, or finance, it's actions of the board as a whole, because those are the three, those are the pillars of our stewardship responsibility or governance responsibility with the board. So those are where certainly where we will align our individual work. And it's really kind of awkward when you're actually being advanced as the president to call the motion again, but we do need to elect the officers. So is there any further conversation, or does somebody, want to take issue with the slate as it's been advanced, or we'll take a second from Marwan's motion as a recommendation from the committee?
I'll second it.
Yeah, Gina, I'll bet you're going to second it. Otherwise, you might have to be in one of those roles, right? Privileged to serve, and your turn is coming. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for approval of the motion that's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All opposed? There's none.
So Stephanie, can I get clarification on the motion?
The motion is specific to the officers, Tammy,
For the president
for president
and the
and
vice president.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And I don't know that we actually elect the committees. We just make those assignments later.
They're just appointments, correct?
Yeah. We'll get those lined up. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you. It is really a pleasure to serve. And thank you, Marwan, and also to Sue, who's not here this evening, for taking up and having those conversations between last meeting and this. The next item on our agenda is the Washington Learning Source interlocal agreement. Mike's going to lead us through this discussion because it's an intergovernment agreement membership kind of to aid purchasing. But Mike, I'm going to let you take it from there.
You pretty much covered my whole report. Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions?
I don't think so.
No, just the agenda item before you this evening is, as you mentioned, an interlocal government agreement, or an interlocal agreement, which authorizes Kitsap Regional Library to become a member of the Washington Learning Source competitive purchasing program. In the state of Washington, a competitive purchasing program such as this, and in particular is focused on educational organizations, school districts and library districts, for example. A competitive purchasing agreement allows us to leverage a lot more opportunity in purchasing and in terms of hiring contractors and things like that. All of the contracts and contractors that are part of this program have already won competitive bid processes in the state of Washington, allowing us to select them without having to go through our own competitive bidding process. That gives us, as a small organization, a great advantage. We're members of another cooperative purchasing agreement called Sourcewell in the state of Washington, as well as we leverage the state contracts themselves with the Department of, help me out, Dan, before I forget, the Department of
Enterprise Services.
Thank you. That's it. Yes, Department of Enterprise Services in the state of Washington. So all of these resources allow us to look for contractors who have already bid on the same work that we need done and won in a competitive bidding process. So like I said, it allows us to utilize those contractors without having to go out to an RFP or a competitive process of our own, which is, like I said, I'm repeating myself now, but it's a great advantage because in this particular time, it is very difficult to get any contractors to be responsive to a bid process. Just looking for example, some concrete work around Sylvan Way or something, it can take us months just to get a single quote from a contractor. And Dan knows how hard it is for us to come up with a minimum of 3 quotes from different contractors to compare on simple little projects. So we look for opportunities like this so we can contact directly contractors without having to go through that process in a very legal manner and without it's all above board, and there's no question about legality or skirting our purchasing requirements and policies. So it's very useful for us.
And if I can add to what Mike's stating, it
Mhm.
also is something that Stephanie and I were talking about before with the auditor. You mentioned we'll need to revise our purchasing policy to say this is something that allows us to another avenue to go besides a formal competitive bid process.
Okay.
But we need to revise our policies to reflect that. So we're not in violation of our own policy.
Get on it, Dan. First of all, we have to approve. So, Mike, you mentioned Sourcewell. So we're involved in some other cooperative agreements that allow us to leverage and make easier so that we can actually meet state requirement A.
Exactly.
Is this, I just highlighted, is this specific to technology, goods and services? I mean, this handles a certain area, or is this inclusive of a lot of different?
It's inclusive of any work that may be done in and around educational facilities and organizations. So like I said, this is sponsored by the Puget Sound Educational Service District, and then made available to school districts, college districts, junior college districts, and library districts around the state of Washington.
Okay.
I have a question. Do
So
we have a under either state law or any funding agreements or anything else, the requirement to ensure that contractors haven't been debarred? Like, do we check for debarment and stuff? I guess my assumption is that an organization like this, that would help in the procurement process as well.
No, we haven't written that into our policy, but I believe we should add that, Gina. That's a really good point to add to our policy for that.
It sounds like
Yeah,
that stuff, though, that is already covered in law is a level of assurance to make sure that all those boxes are ticked as you're evaluating.
And generally, those checks are done through the competitive bidding process. So as long as those contractors are not to what I would call stale in a, if the bids are not more than a year old, for example, then as they went through that process to win those bids, they would have had those checks performed by the original contracting agency.
Good. And for clarification, because this was helpful, the action you're seeking tonight is approval of this agreement, which really makes us a member of. We're not approving any sort of particular financial.
Correct, exactly.
Right.
And I did thank you. I did want to make that point. You are not through this action item, you are not authorizing the purchase or contracting of any specific work. This is simply authorizing Jason as the library director to sign, and I will fill out the application. Jason will sign it, and this will be our membership application to the Washington Learning Source Purchasing Program. Once approved by the program, we'll post the application along with the minutes from this meeting that this board approved it on our website to meet our requirements for the program, and then we move forward from there.
Are there any other questions of Mike or Dan or Jason by the board?
This makes all the sense in the world, especially having a pool of resources that have done similar work, similar types of structures and so forth. So you have some history, and sometimes that can be a little difficult in when you're trying to get a big unique building updated. So it makes all the sense in the world.
Or it sounds like even a small concrete project that sometimes, right? Sometimes those are the harder things to potentially.
Hiring contractors and making competitive purchases right now is exceptionally difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Good. All right. Well, I was reminded, and I made notes while Mike was talking. So I was reminded during our study session that, in fact, as president, I can make a motion. So I'm going to do that because I was taking notes. I make the motion that we authorize Jason to sign the application for membership to the Washington Learning Source to be considered for membership of the cooperative purchasing cooperative. Tammy might have to clean that up a little.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Nope. All right, all ready to make, take action on this? Everybody's supportive, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, good, no opposed, okay, great. The hardest part of this was actually the linguistics are tough to get out of your mouth, Mike, so all the words there are tricky, so good. Okay, on to the next item, which is resolution 2022/10, which is the official adoption of the Kitsap County Rural Library District's 2023 operating budget. I'm going to let Dan lead us with this.
Thanks, Stephanie. So the draft 2023 operating budget was presented to you last month for review and for the purpose that by state law, we need to submit a revenue budget and a draft operating budget to the county before the end of November. So we met that deadline and guideline. So now we're coming back to formally adopt the budget. And Stephanie and I have talked about this. We may, if the board's amenable to it, we may just do it all in one motion next year in November, because nothing has changed between November and December. And we have to have it ready anyway by November. So we may be able to do it in just one meeting rather than having it in December. But that being said, we're back here to approve it. As we close out the year, year-end savings will be transferred into the capital reserves, and the 2023 capital budget will then be presented to the board in January. That budget will address critical maintenance to buildings and regular update to spaces, furnishings, and technology, ensuring responsible stewardship of the spaces the library has been entrusted with. So it's a two-part process for a budget, operating budget tonight, capital budget next month. So I'll take any questions if anybody has any questions on that. Otherwise, I'd love to have the resolution adopted.
Be helpful. Are there any questions for Dan? No, we're good. All right. Somebody want to make a motion in support of approving resolution 2022/10?
Yeah, motion to approve the 2023 final budget.
Second that.
Right. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Ready to take a vote on approval as motioned and seconded for resolution 2022/10 to approve the 2023 operating budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Dan, what is this motion? Good.
I'm just praying it's going to pass.
Got so many pieces of paper here. Hang on a quick second. We're now down to, okay, resolution 2022/11, which is authorization for Kitsap County Rural Library District, DBA, Kitsap Regional Library, to write off $7,811.54 in bad debt. That is the summation of 359 inactive patron accounts that have been sitting on accounts receivable. So Mike, do you want to provide some context for this?
I have very little to say other than this is an annual event whereby we review our inactive patron accounts that are more than 7 years old, and then seek the board's authorization to take not only the fines, fees, and monies that are owed by these inactive accounts off of our record, but also these inactive patron accounts off of our records along with them. I will leave it up to Dan if there are any financially related questions about writing off bad debt or the technical side of that. But essentially, that's what we're asking authorization to do, is to eliminate this, the record of this unpaid fines and fees from our financial record, and eliminate. That's perhaps a rude word, sorry, but to write off these inactive patron accounts as well.
Yeah.
I just
So Mike-
want to add, it doesn't affect our financial position. This is not in our books. This is
Yeah.
basically removing the accounts from our Polaris catalog system that we have, but this is not tracked in our financials at all.
Because
we're
we've
on a cash
already agreed to not have fines, right? That was my question.
We have, but we're also on a cash basis. We're not on a GAAP basis for accounting, so we don't track receivables. We record cash as it's received and expenditures as they occur. We don't accrue any of those expenditures.
So
Or
that's
revenue.
what's, okay. And moreover, in addition to, which is a good clarity, thanks, Mike. So moreover, in addition to canceling the debt, it really is also removal of those inactive accounts that have exceeded
Correct.
years.
Yep.
Okay.
Am I right, Mike, that you cannot remove those accounts until that piece is cleared
Mhm.
with the record?
Correct.
That's correct.
We can't remove the accounts from our Polaris system until we remove the fees owed associated with those accounts. So.
Okay. Any further questions for the team? No? Okay. I'll take a motion to approve resolution 2022/11.
I'll make that
Motion.
motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right. Having had no further discussion, we'll take action on resolution 2022/11, which authorizes the removal of the bad debt and subsequently then the associated records associated with it exceeding 7 years. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. I love the end of the year meeting. There's just a lot, there's a lot of cleanup. Okay. Moving to item 10.5, resolution 2022/12. We're almost to the end here of the new business. This repeals a previous resolution 2022/7, which really set out our meeting schedule for 2023. I believe the only change that's causing this to be reconsidered is the fact that we have changed our location. Is that Tammy? Yeah. So our meeting dates and times are the same. This resolution just updates that schedule of meetings to denote that we will be moving our regular meeting to the Norm Dix Government Center in Bremerton. And this is done in part, really, there was, earlier this year, people will recall there was discussion, certainly as we were transitioning through COVID and in the virtual world, but also being asked to consider accessibility and all kinds of other things. And this move allows us to have probably more consistent, better technology in support of our meetings, including being able to have the meetings recorded by BCAT and such that they could be broadcast and accessed at a later date. So are there any questions about the action we're going to invite you to take on 2022/12, or I'll take a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 2022/12.
In a second.
Seconded.
Okay, given that it's not complicated and we just need to approve the meeting date, I'll ask for a vote on this resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Great. Our last item then really is just notification that our next future meeting date is scheduled for Tuesday, January 24th at the new location. Hopefully neither sickness nor snow will keep us apart then, and certainly invite people to, to join us there if they wish. With that, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season as we sort of close out the end of this year, and best wishes for a new year. Meeting is adjourned.